just want us to be able to do a video where I don't have to edit anything. All right, welcome back to Master Guitar, where you can learn how to master the 2600. You may be asking yourself, why is a shred guitar channel spending so much time talking about keyboards? Well, I covered that in a couple of other keyboards. There's 4 different reasons, and reason number 5, which I'll give you today, is the last band I was in, I was just a guitar player, and then I was a wandering hired gun for travel. Before that, in almost every band I've been bass and keyboards. Don't draw any conclusions about other bands that have had famous bass player and keyboards combinations. Well, yeah, go ahead and draw that conclusion. Second, when I moved to guitar, I still kept playing keyboards. At one point, I just wanted to be a keyboard player, just because, you know, my band wanted to move in that direction, and we were trying to look around to find somebody and couldn't find anybody. And my band's solution, way back when, you know, that garage band, you were convinced this was going to be it. This is going to be the band that's going to be super famous. Well, that band, they knew I could play anything, so they basically assigned me, okay, you're going to learn to play the drums, you're going to be the drummer for a while. Okay, well, I was drummer for a while. Then it was, you're going to play keyboards. Okay, well, I'm going to play keyboards. Well, we need a bass player, so now you got to play bass. I was like, you know, I can't do all this at the same time, right? You know. Sorry, I'm sitting around and sweats a lot. I just recently had some surgery, and I can't put on regular clothes. And I'm sitting instead of standing because I, again, just had surgery. So I've got my 2600 set up right here. What I'm doing now is I'm just leaving this one in here because this is, you know, one of the weird little things about the 2600. It's designed, the AR is designed to be linear. It's going to be an increasing spectrum of response from the AR. The ADSR is just regular. But let's talk about the subject of today, which, as you know from the title of this, is Behringer Evil. I see a lot of comments from people who sit there and they just tear Behringer a new one. You know, you guys shouldn't be doing what you're doing, blah, 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 whatever. Why I've got this on, aside from the fact that it's beautiful, is that, you know, this to me was a major dream to have this. And you know, I talked about in the other video my connection with my father being offered a job with ARP, and he turned it down, and it was their last ditch effort to try to be, you know, a successful company. These were $2,000. Now if you want to think about what $2,000 in 1971 means, that would be the equivalent of this being $9,000 today. You know, you could buy a family car for $29.95 back in those days. They didn't even have all the lights. This is something some guy did. I guess he got bored. He bought an ARP Odyssey, and he drilled out all the holes in here and put in LEDs and hooked it all up. I remember seeing a picture of it, and I guess Behringer did too, and they were like, ooh, that looks really nice. So when they put out their Odyssey, you know, it's the Korg ARP or the CARP, came out at the same time, and Behringer was doing theirs. It's really kind of funny because there's a neck-and-neck competition, but I don't hear anyone knocking on Korg. Mind you, everyone's knocking on Behringer, but no one's knocking on Korg. Why? Is it because Korg is charging twice as much for the same synth? We'll get to that in a second. Is Behringer evil? Let's go back to my first point on this, and you're going to see where this whole thing has been going and what I'm talking about this. I have a 2600. I have a 2600 for less than $2,000. Matter of fact, I paid $649 for this. $649. That was the 1970s price for the Odyssey, I think. Or was the Odyssey, I think was the Odyssey still over $1,000? You couldn't touch a synthesizer of this quality for years and years and years and years and years. Even if you bought one of the aftermarket kits, and no one's knocking on that, the aftermarket kit where you could build your own 2600, how come no one's saying they're evil? You know, there's Behringer's evil, Behringer's the Antichrist, No, come on. I bought this thing for $650. Behringer has placed in my hands the ARP 2600. And if I wanted an ARP Odyssey, they did that too. So I can buy for $500, $550 an ARP Odyssey. I can buy very shortly the Oberheim OBX8. I'll be able to buy shortly a Solina. I can buy the DeepMind, and I would love a DeepMind 12. I'm not gonna be able to afford that. If I buy another synth, it's probably going to be a DeepMind 6, and I'll just have to sit there and forever want all the other ones. Again, go back and see the video that just premiered the other night as the time of this filming. Gear acquisition syndrome. And no, that wasn't a joke. I was being very, 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 very serious about it. I may have been slightly funny during parts of it, but the entire thing was very serious, that musicians look and they say, I want to have this, and there's very good reasons why. And I'm going to do another video that says, why do we have gear acquisition syndrome? Here's the thing. Behringer, Uli Behringer, started off with his own synth first, and then at some point he began to, the low cost amplifiers, and he's expanded his business into now producing synthesizers again. This isn't a new thing for Behringer, is the synth thing. He got started when he was selling synthesizers door to door, and going into a little shop somewhere in Germany, and hey, I'm building these, you want to buy one? And hey, that's pretty cool. The bottom line is, if Moog wanted us to have the Mini Moog, they would make the Mini Moog, and they would add the refinements and things that Behringer has added. They would add paraphony, and no, it would not be a para D, as I've seen people say. It's Behringer has put in my reach a Mini Moog. Behringer has put in my reach the 2600. Behringer has put in my grasp an ARP Odyssey. I can buy a Solina. I can buy an OBX8. How many synthesizer players was I seeing when I was doing my album a few years ago that were talking about, man, the sound I want you can only find in those old classic synths. I'm having to use VSTs. Is it better to get the actual synth? And everyone's like, dude, you will be spending tons and tons and tons of cash to get it. Yeah, because you'll be paying, if I wanted an Odyssey, or if I wanted a 2600 now, I'd be spending $14,000 on eBay and probably still have to send it to a shop to get something tweaked and worked on. So yeah, they were right. Back then, you would have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to amass a collection. Like if I had $2,500 to spend on Behringer synths, I could amass a great collection. But to do that with the real synths on which they are based, I would have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not doable. That's not reachable. Well, why don't the new companies make them? That's the question of the day. Why isn't, someone putting together Oberheim again? Now, you can't say Behringer is ripping off Oberheim because they bought Oberheim. So you can't say that that's wrong. You can't say they're being unethical by offering these synths, because you didn't say Korg was unethical. And when that other company was making back in 2013, was making the kits you could order of the 2600 that basically cost you, by the time you bought all the parts and put it together, a 2600, you would be saying, well, that you didn't say that was unethical. No one's saying anything about teenage engineering or any of the synth module companies you can buy all the little parts from, and you can build yourself a Moog Model 55 if you want. It's just going to cost you $3,500 to buy all the modules and get the frame, and basically by the time you're done with it, you can recreate it. Is that unethical? I don't hear anyone saying that about any of these companies, Teenage Engineering and all the other ones that are making all these modular synths that you can buy that basically amount to a Moog Model 55. I don't hear anyone saying they're unethical. I don't hear anyone saying they're evil. I don't hear anyone saying they're the Antichrist. What about Korg? With the Carp Odyssey and the Carp 2600, nobody said that they were evil. Nobody said they were unethical. they offered the recreation. They just charged a lot more money for it. I got the same thing. In many cases, I would rather have this than the Korg 2600 because this is laid out exactly the same. I was watching a video of some guy trying to patch the Carp 2600, and they had like everything all laid out in a row. Everything in the grouping was not natural, was not normal. I mean, this is normal because I can look and I can say, this is one of my oscillators. This is one of my oscillators. This is one of my oscillators. This is the VCF section. Down here, I've got, you know, here's my modulators. I've got my preamps, noise generator. Here's my VC section, or for CV, voltage control for control voltage. Does that make sense? Sample and hold module. I've got my VCA here. I've got my ADSR, the envelope. I've got a reverb over here. And finally, I've got a master mixer. I understand the way this is laid out. This makes perfect sense to me. And you know, I started out with the Korg Delta, which was a very weird and funky synthesizer. I basically use it as a string machine, and then every now and then I get a cool little low rumble, which basically you just dragged on you had 4 oscillators, 16 foot, 8 foot, 4 foot and 2 foot, I think. And I just dragged the volumes down on the other 3 oscillators, and I would just play the 16 foot oscillator and just basically, I think that was basically more the pulse width and the initial frequency, setting that with one slider. It was a very odd duck of a synthesizer, and I would love to have another one. I had another Korg, Poly 800. I thought that was really cool, but everyone, apparently it's the worst synthesizer ever made. I had the Electro Harmonics, the little black thing that was about that big and had the little sliders and everything. Very cheap synth, like less than $200. Very cool, I thought. Again, people are saying it's one of the worst synths ever made. So, is Behringer evil? Are they unethical? Again, I'm not hearing you say this about the company that you could buy the parts for. Started with a T and I can't remember. You could buy all the parts to make your own 2600. I don't hear anyone saying that about Teenage Engineering or any of the module companies that make all the little Eurorack modules so you can build a Moog Model 55, you know, because Korg is not re-releasing their old, they're re-releasing some of their old synths, but not all of them. You don't have Roland releasing their old synths. Basically it's the semi-modular little junkie box that I can't remember if it was Korg or Roland put that out. I remember Yamaha had the exact same one. You could order the same one, the Yamaha, that I guess it was the Korg one, and you know, so you can buy the same one now from Behringer. What's the difference between Korg and Yamaha ripping each other off and Behringer? Behringer is putting these instruments into our hands very inexpensively, and being a synth gearhead, you know, Uli Behringer is sitting here saying, wow, I could add MIDI to this and I could add CV to it, because he's thinking, so the person who buys this is going to be a working musician, and they're probably going to want to take this and they're going to want to hook this up to, you know, Eurorack, and so you need CV so that you can do that. Because I've read 2 different ways. I've read that this will interface with a Eurorack. I've read it won't, but you can use your CV, and just by altering your voltage here, I mean, don't give it full voltage. Send it out to your Eurorack, but just don't give it full voltage. You can control your voltage right there. See, watch, controlling it. I'm actually controlling how much voltage I'm putting out. None more. So if that's too much for your Eurorack, put it there. It's not that hard. If you have to, get an attenuator and put it in between. Doesn't this thing look amazing? Sometimes I love to just put this up there and just watch the lights go. It's like my own little Christmas thing. Blinking lights and stuff like that. So, Behringer, I'm on your side. I am a huge fan. I am so thankful you're putting this stuff into my hands where I can buy the synths I always owned, always wanted to own. Ones that, especially, you know, any of the ARP stuff is always going to be, you know, sentimental to me, because, you know, I lost my father recently, and ARP asked him to save the company, and even though he said no. If he had done it, he probably would have saved him. He probably would have turned him around, and I probably would have had a whole bedroom full of ARP synths that I probably wouldn't have taken very good care of, and I probably would have traded and sold, and then sitting here years later and saying, that was stupid. I can't believe I traded a 2600 for a PV bass or something dumb like that. There you go. Those are my thoughts. I'll do some more videos patching with this thing. Just in case, the other reason I didn't get to why I'm doing the 2600 is because I did one little video of doing some patching on my 2600, and guess what? It got more views than some of my guitar videos. So if you don't like the 2600 videos, don't watch them. If on the other hand, you're thinking to yourself, hey, I can diversify as a guitar player, I can make myself more important to the band, and we can keep from hiring some keyboard player that we only need for 1 or 2 songs, I'll do it myself. All right, there you go. If you can play guitar, you can play the keyboard. It's not that hard. All right, thanks. Like, subscribe, comment. Tell me what you think. Do you agree with me on Behringer? Don't care if you disagree. If you disagree, go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say they're unethical. The only thing I'm going to ask you to do is, now that I've said what I've said, you've got to explain why it's unethical for Behringer, but not unethical for Teenage Engineering or Korg or for any of the other companies that have made low-cost versions that are exact duplicates of the other, synths, the classic synths. And then tell me why it's unethical for Behringer to offer Oberheim when they bought it. All right, like, subscribe, comment. We'll see you next time.